Hi everyone, I'm super excited today because we're launching a new feature that was a lot of fun to build and I think will be super useful to SaaS operators and founders that use ChartMogul. The feature is called Scenarios. So let me show you it. If you're in your account, you'll find it here on the left side. Has its own section of the application. What Scenarios does basically is projects into the future how your ARR and your subscriber count will unfold in the future if kind of the same dynamics from the past sort of 3, 6, or 12 months, you can actually select here, basically repeat themselves indefinitely into the future. So if you had the same number of new subscribers, the same sort of expansion upsell rates, the same downgrade rates, the same churn rates, the same reactivation rates, basically if all those dynamics just repeated themselves indefinitely and nothing changed, what would happen in the future? So that by itself is already pretty interesting. You can have a look at the labels. You can see for this SaaS business, they go from 1.6 to 1.9 million by the end of year 2030, and the subscriber count grows as well. So not a lot of growth here in this dummy business that we're looking at, but it's really interesting, and it's been really interesting for me to see, how ChartMogul itself, fares. And you'll see that, a lot of SaaS businesses, they have what's called the SaaS ceiling. So, if you project into the future, growth tends to slow because if the churn rate stays constant, then the growth will eventually hit what's called the SaaS ceiling or subscription ceiling. And it allows you to see that. And of course, so SaaS companies that always grow, fast, and they have to always kind of be reducing the churn or getting more top of funnel, more new customers, or adding more expensive plans and these kind of things in order to keep growth going effectively. So if nothing changes, subscription businesses tend to have what's called this SaaS ceiling, and you'll start to see that when you play with this feature in your own data. But what's more useful than just projecting into the future is then asking yourself, well, okay, what would a different future look like? And that's where these sort of what if, or we call them what if scenarios, come in handy. So you can ask this feature, well, how would the future look like if we managed to get our churn rate down? And you can just click here, what if our churn rate decreased by 20%? And you can see right away. And you can see here that that is now simulated. And you can see that this has resulted in a 14% higher ARR versus the baseline, which is really cool. So, but what about if it went down by 50%? And now 50% reduction in churn is very, very hard to do. It's not something that happens immediately. So you can phase it in. You can say, well, what about if it took 2 years to phase in that 50% churn reduction? How would things look like? And you can see it kind of takes a while to phase itself in. And then you can see that this results in a 35% higher ARR by the end of 2030 versus the baseline projection. So huge difference. And it's not just about churn. You can phase in. You can layer on other things. You can say, what if we also got, this is a very small account, so I'm gonna increase the number of new subscribers every month by 150%. So instead of 4 new subscribers, we get 9 new subscribers a month. It's a demo account, and we also phase that in over 24 months. So you can see the combined effect of a huge increase in new subscribers and a huge reduction in churn obviously creates very different outcome for this business. Now, what's perhaps more useful for a SaaS operator is not to see the combined effect of these two different levers, right? More new subscribers and lower churn. Of course, that produces more growth. What's more interesting is if you can actually see, the difference between the two. So you can actually change that and into an or and see, well, what if you got more new subscribers or you reduce the churn and, by whatever amount, and you can set that up. So here you can see then the big increase in new subscribers was more impactful than the 50% reduction in churn for this account. And you can, of course, play with that and say, well, what if this was only a 50% increase in new subscribers? And actually, it's a fairly similar outcome. So, I think if you're a SaaS business with very high churn, then a small improvement to the churn rate will likely have a bigger impact than getting more new subscribers, unless it's a lot. So you can kind of play with these and kind of compare the difference, and maybe you can think to yourself, well, what is realistic for our business to be able to achieve, and it helps you really focus your attention on the things that's likely to have the most impact into the future. And anyway, so that's the feature, and you can simulate all sorts of scenarios. For example, you could simulate a price hike. This is kind of always interesting to do. What if you dramatically increase your prices? Well, you can do that for new customers only. So what if you just increased your price by 20% only for new customers? You grandfathered your existing customers, which is best practice. Well, you could also kind of simulate a more, nefarious maybe, or a more extreme example. Maybe when a private equity acquires a SaaS business, they have this reputation of dramatically increasing prices. So let's say you dramatically increase prices for new and existing customers by 200%. So you tripled prices. Obviously don't do that. And then you can kind of say, well, we also anticipate churn will increase, right? Immediately, churn would increase by probably 200% as well. So like, what would happen in that scenario? You dramatically increase prices, and churn rate dramatically increases as well. Well, you get this huge spike. ARR goes from 1.6 to 4.3 million immediately. And then, the churn rate starts to kick in. And in 5 years, you end up actually in a similar place to where you'd end up anyway, except you've got way less subscribers, and you're now relying on a very small number of, subscribers that are paying you a lot of money, basically, to sustain your ARR, which is not a very healthy business anymore. So anyway, obviously you don't want to do that, but it's a very fun and interesting tool to kind of play with and compare the difference between, what is going to have the most impact on your business. And it really depends on your business, how this is going to look. Like if you have very low churn, changing the churn rate is not going to change much. But if you have high churn, any change in churn rate will have a big impact, right? So this I hope you find it interesting and fun, and helps you make better decisions. I certainly have found it really eye-opening the last few weeks as we've been testing it out at ChartMogul for our own business. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.